Welcome to this week's installment of This Week in Vegan Instagram. I'm your host, Carnivore is Vegan. Welcome to my channel. Please like and subscribe to support my channel. And we're going to start out this week with Gunhild Stordalen. If you don't remember her from last week, she is a billionaire philanthropist, quote unquote, who was one of the co-founders of the Eat Lancet diet. And if you're not familiar with that, the Eat Lancet diet recommends basically zero to minimal amounts of animal protein for various reasons. And the WHO even disclaimed it as one of their sponsors. They dropped sponsoring the Eat Lancet diet. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but in any case, she is not fully vegan as far as I can tell, as far as promoting only veganism. And it's kind of interesting. So she is dropping some truth bombs here once in a while that are very interesting, and she's talking about Seaspiracy, and I mentioned this last week, and she had some more posts on this. And she is saying, unfortunately, the film is full of misinformation and scientific flaws. The answer is not to leave it to the consumer to stop eating fish, which is the film's first call to action. In fact, the ocean is one of our most important pantries for the future. If we are to feed 10 billion people enough healthy food without destroying the planet, science shows we need to eat much more plants, less red meat, and more blue food, which includes algae, etc. So in the same way that meat is not just good or bad, but about less but better, I say there's 50 shades of red, and there's at least 50 shades of blue. In other words, it's all about how do we protect, restore, clean up, and sustainably harvest our ocean. So she is not calling for an absolute ban on eating fish, which is great. And she says here, it's not the cow, it's the how. Anybody recognize that phrase? That's a regenerative ag phrase, specifically from Sacred Cow. And it's a regenerative agriculture phrase that is talking about how to use cows sustainably and not to just ban them altogether. So even though she promotes a very big reduction in meat, I'm glad to see that she's not a complete abolitionist like some of these vegans are. And I believe I've seen her eating some cheese once in a while, a little bit of halloumi on a couple of her dishes, which she did not say vegan halloumi. So looking more and more interesting. Next we have Jon Venus again and his wife Catherine Moen. Welcome to the world, little baby Luna. Congratulations, Catherine and Jon, and I hope they feed her some eggs and preferably some meat, but I believe Jon is feeding Noah his 2-year-old eggs. He doesn't specifically state, but he has a couple of things that would make you believe that. Here's Noah with Luna, and she's named Luna because she was born on the full moon. Isn't that adorable? And she was born at home. There's his chicken house. He did a little chicken tour on his Instagram stories. And this is why I think he might be feeding Noah eggs. He says, "Will you eat those chickens?" was a question. And he says, "No, but the eggs they lay provide food for everyone in the family here in Norway." Everyone? So Catherine and Noah as well? He didn't specifically state, although I did ask him, but it would imply that they are all eating eggs if the chickens are feeding everyone in Norway. He also lives with his parents, but his mom is supposedly vegan as well. So when he says everyone, does he mean everyone? I don't know. I asked, but he didn't respond. The Fairly Local family has some new baby chicks. They said that they are fostering them, whatever that means. Very cute, but why would you have chickens if you're not going to eat eggs or eat chickens? I don't know. Surprise, we have 3 baby chicks in our home. We've named them Dahlia, Ginger, and Lily. We're fostering them. I didn't watch her blog. Sorry for the throat clearing. I don't think I'm getting allergies, but all of a sudden, of course, when I started recording, my throat started tickling. And for today's feature, we're going to feature Zoe Rooster, and I'm wondering if she has a death wish. She certainly seems like she doesn't want to live, and she is making it worse with her diet. If only she would eat a carnivore diet or a heavy meat-based diet, I'll bet she'd get a lot better, but then her head would explode from all the cognitive dissonance. Her stories are just absolutely filled with all of her health problems. It's really a sad case. And again, she's only 18. She's an animal activist going to Berkeley, and she hit a nerve putting in one of her insulin pump sites. Super painful, I guess, she says. She was talking about how she couldn't even focus when she took her SATs because it was beeping and her blood sugar was super high. That doesn't sound healthy. All that stress for state testing. And she can't handle even the most normal of stress that other people can handle. She has blood sugar issues all the time. She breaks down in tears. So it's not her fault. Yes, it still is your fault, Zoe. I know you have type 1 diabetes, which is incurable, but you could manage your blood sugar a lot better if you were on a meat-based diet rather than being a dingleberry and eating a terrible vegan diet. She never shows her food, so I suspect she's eating a horrible processed food diet. I actually used to work with a type 1 diabetic who sort of also had a death wish, and she'd just eat Snickers bars and chips for lunch and then hit her insulin pump randomly. And she did end up dying. She was about 30 years old when she died. She kind of feels the same way to me, where she just really doesn't care that much. If she didn't have her animal activism, I think she wouldn't care at all. Normalize medical devices. Sure, normalize medical devices, but don't normalize being sick all the time from a controllable illness. Yes, it's not curable, but we can control certain illnesses, like I showed a couple of weeks ago. Type 1 diabetes is controllable with diet, not curable. Back to Jon Venus. His brother Dr. Leo Venus. This is very, very interesting because Leo seems to have divorced himself from his MD role. He used to have everything doctor, doctor, doctor. Again, sorry about that. My throat just started tickling as I started talking. So this doesn't say anywhere that he's a doctor. He doesn't really talk about being a doctor anymore. He's still talking about veganism, but his YouTube channel has just changed drastically, and I think he deleted a bunch of other videos. I assume he had a bunch of videos. So this is his Instagram page, and it's just a little odd. This is his YouTube page, and look at these weird videos. Like don't even seem to have a point, and they're just kind of flippant and off the hook. They're very strange. And nothing about him being a doctor. It's all very strange. I'm wondering if there's a backstory behind that, why he doesn't talk about being a doctor anymore. I don't know. Very weird to me. Another new video, and it shows he only has 5 videos. and 37,000 subscribers. I wasn't a watcher of his old YouTube video, but I presume with 37,000 subscribers, he has had a bunch of other videos, and these all seem new. So I don't know what's going on. Very, very odd. Only 5 videos. And then next we're going to go to Vegains, or Vegan Strength. He calls himself Vegains in some videos. So one thing that I notice about him is that his face just looks puffy these days. When he was sick, his face really leaned out. And then when he's better, not healed, but better, his face always looks very puffy, and which is very interesting because he should be the same amount of leanness from when he was sick, because he's not fat, and that's one of his primary points, is that he's not fat, and he's got a six-pack and all of that. But there's a theory that you can tell your visceral fat by your face, and he just always looks puffy. So I'm wondering if anytime he isn't just sick and super skinny, that he gets visceral fat before he gets body fat. And that just can't be healthy for you. But his face just always looks very puffy to me. He's got a very unusual face for such a lean, supposedly a lean guy. And he's still wearing his wound dressing. And supposedly, he said to Vegan Deterioration that he was wearing this because he's out in the sun. However, if you look at his wound, he also showed his wound. And to me, that just looks awful. I'm going to show some graphic images here, so anybody who gets ill or sick from graphic images, you should not watch the next minute or so. So that's his wound, and it just looks awful. Wounds do not look like that. In fact, I was a cardiovascular intensive care unit nurse for many years, and we did open heart surgeries, and literally within 2 or 3 days, you couldn't even see the scar on a lot of these open heart surgeries because the technology for doing these wound incisions, for closing them, is so good. This is him 6 months later. At least 6 months. I'm not even sure how long it's been now, but it's been a very long time. And it doesn't even look as though the wound edges are closed. And it just looks red and angry. And I wanted to show you some pictures of this is from a medical website of a non-healing wound, and they put some medical device in there that's like a sponge that has vacuum seal on it. And this was, I don't know the time period, but it was a very short amount of time, maybe a month. So this was somebody with a wound that was that large, non-healing, and this was the result of that wound in a month or so. And to me, I think it looks a lot better than what he has. And he's supposedly a healthy guy. And presumably that person was someone who ate meat, but they had a non-healing wound. This was a huge, gigantic wound that had not healed, and it's healing better than his. This just does not look right to me. Interestingly, there's a study called Comparison of Post-Surgical Scars Between Vegan and Omnivore Patients. And I had looked at this study before, but I hadn't noticed this part, and they said wound diastasis, I don't know exactly how you pronounce that, was more frequent in vegans. After 6 months, vegans had an overall worse scar spread, more atrophic scars, and worse overall scar impression. This study suggests that a vegan diet may negatively influence the outcome of surgical scars. And again, this is in the Perpetual links section underneath in the below part, and I'm keeping a Perpetual spreadsheet of all of my links on all of my videos, so they should all be there from all of my videos with the newest ones at the top. So, worse wound diastasis, I'll say, And diastasis is an abnormal separation of parts normally joined together. And that is a very good description of what he has. Separation of parts normally joined together. Why is that? Probably collagen. All right, moving on to the next guy. This is Nicholas Carter, and this is just something random that was on Twitter. And typical of vegans, he lies or sort of moves the truth to make it fit his agenda. And he says, tripled meat consumption in just over a century did not happen because of an idea of free will and personal choice. This is a systematic result of subsidies, lobbying, marketing, funded academics, and governments bailing out conglomerates like Tyson, Cargill, and JBS. And I'm like, what? Tripled meat consumption? What the heck is he talking about? In the US, we certainly haven't had tripled meat consumption. So I went and did some research on this, and global meat consumption, you could definitely say, has tripled. So maybe 100 million, just over 100 million to 300 million since the 1960s. So he must be talking about world consumption, and there's also a chart here of world meat consumption in tons. So that must be where he's getting tripled meat consumption, because U.S. meat consumption since the 1900s has not tripled at all. But his statement doesn't really make any sense, because we certainly, in Africa and Asia, they have not bailed out Tyson, Cargill, and JBS, and that has not helped them. So what he did here is he took world stats and then applied U.S. politics to world stats to make his agenda. The reason that these people are eating more meat around the world is because that's what happens when you get wealthier. You want to eat more meat because it's good for you. And that's one of the first things people do when they get more wealthy, is they start buying more meat. But so he's being very disingenuous here in talking about the systematic result of subsidies, lobbying, marketing, funding academics and governments, bailing out conglomerates, because that has not happened except in the U.S., and we have not tripled meat consumption. Interestingly, one of the things that I ran across in my research was that Israel, which is, they talk about it being super vegan and everybody's vegan in Israel, they are one of the top meat consumers in the world, fourth in the entire world, even above meat-eating Brazil, that has Brazilian barbecues. And yes, I've been to Brazil, and they actually do have those Brazilian barbecues. Not quite as fancy as the Fogo de Chão and stuff, but they definitely have all-you-can-eat meat buffets there. And Israel, it's one of the top 4 in the world for meat eating, so they are hardly vegan. I did not know that. And in the U.S., beef consumption has gone down. Not hugely, but it has gone down. And that's a result of everybody demonizing beef, and we've been eating more chicken. So even though we eat a little less beef, we eat more chicken and more total meat consumption, and less fish consumption than we did decades ago. But certainly we didn't triple our meat consumption. That's ridiculous. All right, moving on to the plant-based doctor. I just love these posts that my first thought is that they're not going to age well. So when his son's 25 or 30 and has man boobs, this post isn't going to age well. But what I did notice on here is, who's that over on the left? That's his 3-year-old son, just turned 3, just had a birthday very recently. And does that back look familiar? His back is starting to look like the vegan deterioration has shown on several other children. Tanny Raw comes to mind, her grandson. That's not a particularly healthy looking back. It's got that poofed out look like the other kids, the other vegan kids in Vegan Deterioration's videos, and very sloped shoulders. To me, he doesn't look that great. But we'll have to see more late in the future because it's a little hard to tell in this video, but I'm just going to keep an eye on him. I told the plant-based doctor saw me following him, and he's like, "What are you doing following me? Why do you care about what I say?" And I said, "I just want to watch his slow motion train wreck," and he thought that was funny. I don't particularly think it's funny, but that's why I'm watching him. Slow motion train wreck for sure. So this was just a conversation that I had on TikTok with somebody, and she said, or he, I'm not sure, 2 good documentaries on Netflix are Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy. If you're more into reading, Google the UN report from 2019 RE climate change. And I said both Michael Mann and Miles Allen of the IPCC have gone on record as saying meat is not the problem of climate change. So he responded, climatologist Michael E. Mann, the vegetarian, who in February of this year said eating meat was a contributing problem to climate change. So, vegetarian, and I'll let the spelling error slide. I do spelling errors. But I did not know that Michael Mann was a vegetarian, so I decided to look it up and see what the deal is with that. And I found some very fun tweets that you guys will love. So Michael Mann, I've known about this tweet, and I have it on my Instagram page, where this is a conversation that he had with somebody who said, meat eating, you need to stop eating meat for climate change, blah, blah, blah. And he's gone on record several times on Twitter saying that's a myth. Meat eating is a modest slice of the carbon emissions pie. The lion's share of carbon emissions come from fossil fuel burning for energy and transpiration. He means transportation. But then he said, can vegetarians save the planet? Why campaigns to ban meat send the wrong message on climate change? And then he says, yes, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat for several reasons, but I am concerned about crap arguments that hopelessly exaggerate the carbon emissions associated with eating meat. Science matters. Getting the facts right matter, regardless of your opinion. So even the guy, this is Michael Mann of hockey stick fame, who is a very pro climate change guy and climate science, supposedly. And he is even saying meat is just not a problem and cut it out with the blaming meat. And he even came out with a recent book that talks about how the oil companies have been successfully done a media campaign to point fingers, to have everyone point fingers at each other for not doing enough, when no matter how much we do, it's not going to help because of the fossil fuel companies. So even the guy who absolutely is a big proponent that we do have climate change, says that all this is bullshit, and says that, eating meat and not eating meat is not going to make enough difference to worry about. Stephanie Lang, she has over 1 million viewers, I think 1.5 million viewers, and she quit veganism. So yay, Stephanie, go for your health. And she did everything she could within the vegan realm. She went to doctors and nutritionists, and her doctors had even told her to start eating meat, and she didn't do it, and she kept going on with different things that she was trying to solve her problems with veganism, and it just didn't work. Yay, Stephanie, I hope you feel better. All right, back to Zoe Rooster again. Boy, this week is a bad week for her. I've been having slightly blurred vision and light sensitivity for over a year. Last spring they found spots on my corneas, and they mostly went away with prescribed eye drops, but my slightly blurred vision never really did. In the last few weeks, it's gotten much worse, and I've even started experiencing eye pain in the last 48 hours. Going to go to the eye doctor tomorrow. Hopefully I get some answers. She goes to the eye doctor, and she had, of course, high blood sugar. And she actually got a diagnosis. She got diagnosed with epithelial basement membrane dystrophy. There's a chance she'll need a big procedure, but the doctor thinks there's a good chance it will improve after 6 months. I'm just relieved to have answers. My eyes have been bothering me for so long. Poor thing, she is 18 years old. Oops, she had a low blood sugar episode. I experience most of the symptoms listed above of low blood sugar. Other symptoms I personally experience are racing heart, panic attacks, shortness of breath, seeing stars. And she went to her first day that she went to Berkeley. She's a new college student and went to Berkeley the first day, and she chained herself to one of the gates or something all day for 12 hours to protest factory farmed animals that they're serving in the cafeteria. And apparently she had a seizure that day and needed to be rushed to the ER, and she still went ahead and did her activism. But boy, poor thing, just has problem after problem after problem. I hope she decides to take her health into her hands and make herself better with some meat and get her blood sugar under control. I ran across a statement from That Vegan Lawyer that I thought was not just interesting, but borderline psychopathic. You decide.
So I want to put dairy in my soy latte, and I wanted to murder her, actually kill her. I rarely drink soy lattes, so when I do, I want to actually enjoy it. I would have actually killed that girl.
Then, after she said she was going to kill that girl, here she is taking some shooting lessons, and she joined a shooting club. If that isn't a little weird, I don't know what is, but that's a little psychopathic to want to kill somebody for putting milk in your soy latte. Everybody makes mistakes. Well, that's it for today, and I just thought I'd end with a little video from the farm again. These are our new pigs. This is Dot and Larry, and they are kuni pigs, and kuni pigs are very interesting because they don't root up the ground like other pigs do. They are grass grazers, so they're basically like cow pigs. They eat mostly grass and alfalfa hay, and they live very nicely on that. I had some music to go with it, but PowerPoint doesn't want to let me run both at the same time when I'm in a mode that they don't like. But anyway, this is Dot and Larry. They are not relatives. They are just the same line of kunis. There's several different lines. Kunis are from New Zealand. They're a New Zealand native breed, supposedly. Probably not completely native, but they were brought over at some point and considered native now. But kuni means fat and round in the native language, one of the Aboriginal languages over there. But these guys aren't so fat and round. They need some more nutrition, so we're going to build them up and hopefully have some kuni babies. We're getting out of the big pig business. Big pigs mess up your land, and they're just so big and so hard to handle. These guys are a lot smaller. They'll probably get to be about 200 pounds. Is about how big they get, and they're just gentle and sweet souls and aren't aggressive. Some of the other big pigs can get really aggressive, but the kunis stay nice and docile and just want to eat grass and hang out in the pasture and sleep if they're not eating grass. So these are our kunis. This is the direction that we're going with our farm. We'd like to have grass-fed pork on offer at some point, not in the near future, but in the foreseeable future of a couple of years. These guys take a long time to grow, but we're going to be offering, hopefully, grass-fed pork in the foreseeable future, a couple of years from now. So I will let you guys know when we have that on offer. So hardly any grains. We're going to hopefully keep them off of most grains and have low PUFA grass-fed pork. Anyway, this is Carnivore is Vegan, signing out. Like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Thanks for watching.